Now an investigation that's 4 years in the making, and we finally have the conclusions, more than 300 pages released by the Justice Department. Now it has now been transmitted to members of Congress, who also are going to want to bring John Durham in to review some of the findings. But the bottom line is this: the investigation found that the FBI failed in many, many ways, things that we already knew from a previous Inspector General report. And I'll read you just a part of it, of John Durham's conclusion. He says, based on the review of Crossfire Hurricane and related intelligence activities, we conclude that the department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report.
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped, and it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI, and to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump.
These pathetic lying weasels over at CNN are now finally admitting what we've known all along. The supposed election collusion between Trump and Putin was one big, massive scam perpetrated by the Clinton campaign, the Democrats, deep state intelligence agencies, and most especially by the lying legacy media. We're going to see what the real consequences of the Durham report are for both the deep state and the legacy media, and why it ultimately guarantees their own inevitable demise. You're not going to want to miss this. CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news, has now had to openly admit that the Russian collusion hoax that they peddled for the whole of President Trump's presidency was nothing short of an out-and-out lie. The John Durham 4-year investigation to the Russian collusion hoax has definitively concluded that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators, that's what the FBI called the Russian collusion investigation, the Crossfire Hurricane investigators did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in the Steele dossier. That's the fabricated dossier that was put together at the behest of British spy Christopher Steele that detailed all these salacious accusations against Trump. Nor was Steele able to produce corroboration for any of the reported allegations, even though he was being offered $1 million or more by the FBI for such corroboration. Remember, the FBI was paying these guys, right? Our tax dollars paid for this Russian collusion hoax. We now know back in March of 2017, the FBI didn't just learn about Christopher Steele's dossier against Trump. They also discovered that this guy named Igor Danchenko was actually Christopher Steele's primary source for all the fabricated stories that they made up in the dossier with Trump. And so in their corrupt wisdom, the FBI actually offered to make Danchenko a paid informant, a confidential human source, knowing that he'd be feeding them lies. The same kind of lies he was feeding Christopher Steele in that fraudulent dossier. And of course, this all happened while we're learning that the top brass at the FBI were using the fraudulent Steele dossier, which they knew was a fake, but they used it as evidence to obtain FISA warrant to spy against Trump. So the FBI actually paid for Danchenko to continue to feed them Russian disinformation in order to frame the president for colluding with Russia. So the very fellow who's responsible for all of those disgusting, salacious lies about Trump contained in that fabricated dossier ended up being a paid informant by the FBI. Our tax dollars basically paid him to frame our president. It's just that insane. And so Durham, in a far more measured way, concluded that there was simply no amount of evidence that was even remotely proportionate to the allegations against Trump, and therefore the FBI was indeed wrong in opening up a full-fledged investigation into Trump, which of course entailed spying and ongoing leaks and a disinformation campaign. In the end, Durham confirmed this was all fabricated by the Clinton campaign, and it was all dutifully and zealously reported on with not even a hint of skepticism and investigative integrity by outlets like CNN and MSNBC and the whole of the legacy media. But wait until you hear who knew about all this long before it all happened. The Durham report got into that as well. But gang, first, if you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message carefully, because as we age, aches and pains are normal. And we're all searching for effective ways to relieve pain. And in light of the opioid crisis, safety is more important than ever. And that's where groundbreaking medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. Now, you've seen Clint on Fox. You've read about him in Forbes. He's a world-renowned health expert who's unveiled a natural pain reliever that's taking the world by storm. It's called CB2, the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous meds. It is the go-to pain reliever for hundreds of professional athletes, tens of thousands of seniors, and the pain reliever of choice for the UFC. And the best news, CB2 has no documented side effects after years of private testing. It's absolutely the future of pain relief. Just ask the athletes in the UFC. It's their official pain reliever. So whatever you do, gang, make sure to click on that link below and check out Clint's amazingly informative report on how CB2 is changing lives by providing safe and powerful relief at a fraction of the cost of pain pills. Click on that link below right now. According to the Durham report, Hillary Clinton's plan to fabricate a story linking Trump to Russia was indeed briefed in August of 2016 by then CIA Director John Brennan to President Obama, FBI Director James Comey, and of course, one Joseph Biden. So it'll be interesting to see if the Republicans in Congress, Republican DAs across the country actually grow a spine and begin the process of indicting these clowns. President Trump, of course, reacted to the report, taking to Truth Social. He wrote, quote, "Wow, after extensive research, Special Counsel John Durham concludes the FBI never should have launched the Trump-Russia probe. In other words, the American public was scammed, just as it is being scammed right now by those who don't want to see greatness for America." And this, to me, is what makes all of this so huge, because all we ever hear from the likes of Bill Maher and other liberals who hate wokeness but can't bring themselves to supporting Trump. Bill Maher, he was just talking about this with Dr. Phil the other day. He says that Trump is so bad, he's a whole different class of bad, precisely because he refused to concede the election. The reason why Trump is worse than anyone else in D.C. is because he refused to concede the election. And my question to freaking Bill Maher simply is, what the hell do you think all these people were doing? What was Hillary and Comey and Brennan all doing in continuing to perpetuate this lie? What they knew was an out-and-out lie, deliberately to undermine Trump's presidency. What I so despise about these kinds of sentiments that Bill Maher expresses is how they play right into this kabuki theater that is the D.C. swamp. They're all liars. They concede with their lips, all the while they undermine that concession with their collusion behind the scenes. And that, according to Maher, that lying collusion is perfectly acceptable. Whereas at least Trump comes out in the open and says it blatantly in the light. That's what we all love about Trump. And that's precisely what I believe is going to be the real consequence in all of this. The lasting consequence is perhaps the most ironic justice we could ever ask for. Because in the end, we as a nation are going through what's known technically as a crisis of legitimacy. So what we have to understand is that the stability of any government rests on a concept that Weber referred to as legitimation. So from Weber onwards, nation-state scholars have observed that the key characteristic of the modern state is the monopolization of violence over a given territory. And as such, the nation-state is the symbol of ultimate authority, with no power, principality, secular, or religious above it. And the only way that such an entity can function outside of tyrannical control is through the process of legitimation, the ability of the state to persuade the vast majority of its citizens of its trustworthiness, that the various administrations and institutions and branches collectively work together for the good and the favor of the vast majority of the people. The moment that confidence erodes, the stability of the government is in trouble. And that is exactly what we're seeing here. What we're seeing coming out of this Russian collusion fiasco is a furthering of the crisis of legitimacy that is bringing down the ruling elite. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And so, when all is said and done, when this ruling elite do finally come crashing down, perhaps in the irony of ironies, perhaps we'll all have CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news, and their blatant program of lies and disinformation, to thank. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on wild brawls and chaos breaking out at a Democrat convention. What else are they going to do? You're going to love it. Make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless. Hey gang, if you want to connect with more courageous patriots and start taking action and organizing, be sure to join my Telegram group. I post the latest breaking news I find interesting and chat with my favorite patriots around the country and even the world. Click the link in the description below and join the conversation today.